Ever catch yourself, in one of those late night conversations about, like, the meaning of life? The kind that leaves you with more questions than answers.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, imagine that's your 9 to 5. Today, we're diving deep into the world of a philosophy lecturer. And we've got some really interesting stuff here from RoleCatcher, like their whole career guide on it. Gives us a real insider's look.
Yeah, it's a fascinating field.
And for everyone listening, this isn't just some abstract brain teaser. This deep dive is for that learner in all of us. Like, what if you're prepping for some big meeting about higher education? Or, hey, maybe you're thinking time for a career change, and sparking young minds sounds kind of cool.
Right. It's a different pace, that's for sure.
So more than just dusty books and, like, debating Socrates, right?
Way more. It's not about just knowing the old stuff. A philosophy lecture, they're like the guides. They help students think critically, navigate all those complex philosophical ideas, and really challenge what they believe.
Okay, I'm hooked already. But what does this look like in the real world, outside of, those fancy university halls?
It's a balancing act. You're designing lectures, coming up with the curriculum, and yeah, you got the grading too. Can't escape that.
Right, part of the territory.
Totally. But it's not just about teaching what we know. It's about discovering new stuff too.
Wait, so no, just reading Plato and calling it a day?
Nope. RoleCatcher actually emphasizes how vital research is for a philosophy lecturer. And not just rehashing old arguments, they're in the thick of it. Like maybe they're exploring the ethics of AI or grappling with the philosophical implications of climate change. It's pretty cutting edge.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Philosophy meeting the real world head on. But all that research, got to do something with it,
You
right?
got it. Publication is key. Those big-name philosophy journals, that's the proving ground. It's about contributing to the field, starting new conversations, and who knows, maybe even getting quoted in a future deep dive.
No pressure, right? But seriously, you're not just shaping how students think, you're adding to centuries of philosophical debate. Talk about a legacy. But how do you even get there? Is it, like, straight from student to professor?
Rarely. RoleCatcher lays out a more, let's say, a more competitive reality. Usually you're starting as a teaching assistant, grading, running discussion sections, proving yourself in those academic trenches.
I can practically smell the instant coffee and hear the keyboard clicks late at night.
It's a rite of passage for sure. But the thing is, not everyone makes it to that coveted professor level. And even for those who do, a lot of positions are like part-time or without tenure. Adds a whole other level of,
Uncertainty, yeah, that's got to be a bit daunting, especially in a field not exactly known for, let's say, its overflowing bank accounts.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher had some stats on this, right?
They did. It's a mixed bag, honestly. So the job outlook for post-secondary teachers, it's supposed to grow, but only by about 4% between 2019 and 2029.
So growth, yeah, but not exactly setting the world on fire. So passion and, like, a love for deep thinking are important, but a little practicality can't hurt.
Definitely not. And speaking of essential skills, it's not all just about loving wisdom and knowing how to argue your point. RoleCatcher points out some unexpected skills that are really important for succeeding in this field, and some of them might surprise you.
Okay, hit me with it. What hidden talents are we uncovering today?
Look at this. Customer service skills, actually super valuable for philosophers, apparently.
Wait, really? I gotta say, not exactly the first thing that pops into my head when I think philosophy lecture. Are we talking like calming down the student who's having an existential crisis after reading Sartre?
That's the one. Think about it. You're dealing with, well, people. Students from all walks of life, colleagues, even administrators who, let's be honest, might not quite grasp the whole existentialism thing.
So less about winning arguments and more about, like, navigating all those messy human interactions.
Exactly. You need to be able to listen, build those connections, and yeah, even know how to de-escalate when a philosophical debate gets a little out of hand.
Sounds like emotional intelligence is just as crucial as book smarts in this gig.
100%. And here's another curveball strong writing, absolutely essential. RoleCatcher gives it a whopping 71% importance rating.
Makes sense when you think about it. Publishing research, writing those grant proposals, it's not enough to just think brilliant thoughts. You got to communicate them clearly, too.
Right. And that's where these digital tools we hear so much about come in. Remember that skills analysis thing we mentioned? That could be a game changer for someone serious about this path.
Okay, yeah, refresh my memory. How does that fit into, like, the whole becoming a philosophy lecturer journey?
So picture this. You're passionate about philosophy, you've got the brains, but you're entering a super competitive job market. RoleCatcher's platform helps you figure out those crucial skills you might be missing. Maybe you're a fantastic thinker, but like your presentation skills need work. Or your writing needs a bit of, a polish before you send it off to those big journals.
So it's like a reality check for aspiring academics.
That's it. And it goes even further. We were talking about how technology is changing the field, right? Well, RoleCatcher is using AI to give job seekers a leg up.
Okay, now we're getting to the good part. AI and philosophy. What kind of magic are we talking about here?
Think of it this way. More and more employers are using AI to sort through job applications. RoleCatcher helps you tailor your resume and cover letter so those algorithms actually notice you.
So you're like speaking the language of the robots without losing your philosophical soul.
Exactly. And it gets even cooler. Employers on RoleCatcher can actually search for potential hires based on specific skills and experience.
It's like a matchmaking service for philosophers.
Right. It's about making things fairer, connecting the right people with the right opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, let's unpack those pros and cons we mentioned earlier. There's a lot to consider there.
Totally. Because it can't all be mind-blowing debates and groundbreaking research, right? What about the everyday reality of this career path? So we've got the intellectual buzz, the rush of publishing some game-changing research. But what about the other side of the coin? Those late-night grading marathons, the pressure to, actually get funding, the whole, is there even a job for me thing that academics always talk about.
It's a balancing act, no doubt. And it's not a walk in the park. RoleCatcher doesn't try to sugarcoat that. We're talking potential burnout, job security that's not exactly a sure thing, especially for like adjuncts. And then there's the whole, you got to constantly be learning, evolving, or you get left behind.
Right, continuous learning. And in philosophy, that's not just a fancy bullet point on a resume. What's that actually look like in action?
Imagine this. You've spent years, maybe even a decade, like really diving deep into one specific school of thought. And bam, suddenly there's a whole new wave of philosophical ideas, maybe sparked by AI, or some big world event makes everyone rethink their ethical frameworks. It's a lot.
So always adapting, questioning your own beliefs, being open to new ways of seeing things.
Exactly. Hitting those conferences, poring over academic journals, jumping into online debates. It keeps you sharp, but it can be draining too.
It's like trying to keep up with the Kardashians, but instead of faction trends, it's like the ethics of transhumanism.
That's a scarily accurate analogy. And speaking of technology, we've talked about how it's changing things for job seekers, but what about how it affects philosophy itself?
Right, we keep circling back to this whole AI and philosophy thing. Is it all like Terminator vibes and existential dread, or is there more to it?
Honestly, that's the big question philosophers are wrestling with right now. I mean, AI is a tool, a super powerful one. It can analyze data, find patterns, even write in a way that seems like a human's thinking.
But could it ever actually think like a philosopher, though? Come up with its own arguments, really challenge our beliefs, maybe even come up with its own ethics?
$1 million question, right? Some people say true philosophy needs consciousness, lived experience, that AI could never feel the weight of these questions the way we do.
Others might say that AI, without our human biases and emotions, could actually have a clearer, more objective view on these things.
Exactly. And that's what makes this such an exciting time to be thinking about philosophy. We're on the edge of something brand new, where tech isn't just a tool, but maybe a whole new voice in the philosophical conversation.
And on that note of, existential pondering, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of a philosophy lecturer.
We covered the tough stuff, the really rewarding stuff, those curveball skills you wouldn't expect, and even, dared to imagine a future where AI joins the debate.
So if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, and really how could it not, don't let it end here. Crack open those classic books, see what's new in AI and ethics. Who knows? Maybe you'll be publishing the groundbreaking philosophy we'll be talking about on a future episode.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp and keep asking those big questions.